Chapter 11:17. Feeling helpless, Luo Fei could only grit his teeth, close his eyes, and open his mouth to eat. Seeing that he really ate the thing, Ning Lang and Song Ming beside him couldn't help but widen their eyes. Their faces were filled with curiosity and disbelief, especially when they saw him eat with his eyes closed and his face scrunched up. Then, he actually opened his eyes and started chewing with relish. The two of them couldn't help but ask, "Is it delicious?" "He's even chewing. Is this a fat intestine that he's chewing?" "Delicious, this taste is really amazing. I've never eaten something so delicious before. Come, Duan Yi, I'll help you." He changed from his previous rejection and cut off the head and tail himself, giving one to Duan Yi who was beside him. Duan Yi looked at the way he was eating and then looked at the thing in his hand. His baby face also turned pale. "Do I really have to eat this thing?" He looked at Fingzhou and saw Fingzhou looking at him with his arms crossed and eyes narrowed. He knew that he couldn't avoid it, so he could only grit his teeth and eat. Once the thing entered his mouth, he swallowed it directly, unlike Luo Fei who was still chewing slowly. Duan Yi grinned. "How is it? Delicious, right?" As he spoke, he pinched off another one and put it into his mouth. He chewed again and kept praising it with a face full of aftertaste. Ning Lang and Song Ming beside him couldn't help but be curious. "Is that thing really delicious?" The two of them looked at Duan Yi and saw that his baby face was stiff. He didn't frown, nor did he look bitter. However, he didn't chew like Luo Fei, but swallowed directly. Seeing that the two of them kept staring at him, Duan Yi said stiffly with his baby face, "It's delicious. It's really delicious." The two of them couldn't help but be surprised. "Yes, it's really delicious." Duan Yi nodded again and said, "Don't stare at the thing in our hands. We won't give it to you to try if you keep looking," Luo Fei said and moved the box to his arms, guarding against the two of them like he was guarding against thieves. The two of them who were still a little doubtful couldn't help but be moved. "It's really delicious. Do they want to try it too?" Do you want to give us one to try? Let's try the taste." Ning Lang grinned and asked tentatively. "Don't even think about it. Can't you see there are only 10 of them? We don't have enough for ourselves, and Fingzhou said that this is a great supplement, so we won't let you guys have it," Luo Fei said, protecting the box in his arms. Song Ming's eyes lit up when he saw this, and he said, "Let's give it a try. We'll each eat one." At first, they were not interested and even felt disgusted. However, the two of them were eating with relish. There were indeed only 10 fish in a box, and there were only a few left. Therefore, they were a little anxious. Seeing the two of them like this, Duan Yi's baby face did not have any expression. He only glanced at the two of them, then reached out his hand to pick up a fish with its head and tail cut off, put it in his mouth, and swallowed. Luo Fei frowned as he looked at the two of them and asked, "Do you really want to eat?" "Yes, I do. I just want to try the taste and see if it's really as delicious as you said." The two of them grinned and stared at the 2 remaining large white worms. Fengzhou saw this and sighed softly in his heart. He shook his head secretly and couldn't watch anymore. He turned around and went back into the cave. Chapter 11:18. Sure enough, after she left, the two behind her couldn't hold back their curiosity and grabbed a worm each and tasted it after cutting off the head and tail. Once it entered their mouths, the special smell made Ning Lang and Song Ming vomit on the spot. They bent over and their faces turned pale in an instant. The two of them spat with all their might and didn't forget to glare at the laughing Luo Fei. "Ha ha ha, you two idiots, you actually believed it." Luo Fei laughed heartily as he slapped his thigh with one hand. He looked at the two people who were half bent over with ugly expressions after eating a big worm. When he saw the two people's nauseous expressions, he was instantly amused. The nausea he felt from chewing a few worms earlier was now suppressed. Even Duan Yi, who had a long face, couldn't help but laugh when he saw this. He asked, "The taste isn't bad, right?" "That's right, we ate 4 worms and you guys only ate 1 each. What a profit." Luo Fei grinned and took out a water bag from his space to rinse his mouth. Ning Lang and Song Ming looked at them speechlessly. These two scammers, if they didn't see them eating with relish and looking like they were savoring the taste, they wouldn't have been fooled. Who knew that they could eat such a disgusting smell like delicacies? All right, tell me, did you guys hand over all the beast crystals you got? I really didn't expect this. You guys could actually get so many beast crystals in 10 days. Luo Fei couldn't hide his shock as he looked at the two of them. To be honest, he didn't think that the two of them could get so many beast crystals and even take them all out. If they had followed their example and kept some, maybe they wouldn't have lost. That's right, do you think we're weaker than you? Ning Lang snorted lightly and was secretly pleased with himself. The few of them looked at each other and smiled. They didn't speak again and went to the simple wooden house to rest and treat the wounds on their bodies. In the evening, Fengzhou asked them to rest for 2 days to heal their wounds. Hence, that night, they barbecued meat, prepared wine and called Fengzhou out to eat. After 2 days of rest, their wounds were more or less healed. Because most of their wounds were superficial and with the medicine that Fengzhou gave them, scabs formed in 2 days. Hence, after 2 days of rest, they went out again and returned with beast crystals 10 days later. This time, the winner was naturally Luo Fei and Duanye's team. Ning Lang and Song Ming were naturally punished and still ate the big white worms raw. Just like that, they spent another month inside. On the morning of a month later, they arrived at the cave. Fengzhou. Tun Yun walked out from inside, glanced at them, and asked silently. "We're planning to go out, come and tell him." As the few of them spoke, seeing that Fengzhou didn't come out, they asked Tun Yun to pass the message. However, just as they were about to turn and leave, they heard Fengzhou's voice from behind them. "You guys have killed so many beasts, you should have killed all the beasts in this area. The remaining beasts are of a lower grade and won't be challenging to kill. How about this? I'll bring you guys to walk around a little further inside." She smiled and looked at the few of them. "However, you guys better be mentally prepared, you'll meet evil cultivators and itinerant cultivators everywhere you go." Chapter 11-19. Their eyes lit up. They had been here for some time. Since they followed Fengzhou here, they had been in the forest for more than 2 months. Including the journey and the delays on the way, it had been nearly 3 months. Thinking that they were supposed to stay for a year and 3 months had already passed, they were a little anxious. They didn't expect to hear him say that he was going to take them inside today. Just thinking about it made them excited. During this period of time, they had become familiar with the area. Therefore, they were looking forward to it even more. Would there be higher-level beasts inside? Would there be more precious spiritual herbs? Would there be dangers that they had never encountered before? Would there be surprises waiting for them? The adventurous spirit hidden in the depths of the men's hearts became active at this moment. They were looking forward to what they would encounter next. "Yes, we have been here for 2 months. Although your strength hasn't improved during this time, you only lack an opportunity. Let's go inside. I believe that in the remaining days, you will definitely have a breakthrough." She smiled and looked at them. She was still very confident in their strength. Therefore, they packed up and watched Fengzhou remove the boundary and array here. Then, they followed him into the forest on their swords. 2 days later, the 5 people and 1 beast came to a place in the forest to rest. They took out roasted meat from the space and heated it up with fire. Then, they shared it and ate it to fill their stomachs. Compared to the so-called fasting pills, they preferred to eat grains. In particular, the meat of these beasts could replenish the spiritual energy in their bodies. In addition, the taste was better than the fasting pills. Naturally, they would eat grains to stimulate their appetite. That's strange. Why didn't we encounter any danger along the way? Ning Lang said as he ate the roasted meat. Song Ming grinned. It can be because the murderous aura and evil spirit on our bodies are so strong that those beasts can't wait to avoid us. Hearing this, Duan Yi and Luo Fei glanced at him. Why didn't we feel anything? Ever since that time when they used beast crystals to determine victory and defeat, it was an eye-opener for them to see how cunning and scheming these 2 people were. Even Luo Fei had to admit that when these 2 people worked together to scheme, it was really hard to guard against them. Even he had lost 2 out of the 3 rounds that month. It could be seen that these 2 people were just pretending to be stupid. In the first round, he and Duan Yi kept their beast crystals and didn't hand them all over. In the second round, in order to win, they also thought that they would do the same as the first round and hand over all their beast crystals. Who knew that they would only take out the minimum 200 beast crystals that Fengjiu limited them to? Until the third round, he and Duan Yi lost again. Because they held back in the second round and took out the beast crystals they obtained in the third round, they naturally won. From this incident, they knew that these 2 guys were really good at scheming. Perhaps it could be said that Song Ming was not good at this, but Ning Lang was. As long as it was something related to money and benefits, he could always be meticulous in his calculations and make himself profit from it. Chapter 11:20. Yes, we will. The few of them nodded in response and continued eating their barbecued meat. However, when a wave of air rippled from afar and brushed past them, they all raised their heads in surprise. They listened carefully and heard the sound of swords clashing coming from a distance. It was not loud, but it was very chaotic. It should be a chaotic battle. It seems like someone is fighting. Ning Lang stuffed a piece of meat into his mouth and his eyes darted around. Shall we go and take a look? It's none of our business. Why do we care so much? Duan Yi did not want to pay attention to it. He was not interested in things that did not concern him. I don't think it's a big deal to go and take a look. We have nothing to do anyway, Song Ming said. After finishing the barbecued meat in his hand, he wiped his hands and stood up. Luo Fei thought for a moment and said, "We'll definitely get into trouble if we go. Even if we don't rob others, those people will rob us. It's not worth it." Fengjiu listened to their conversation and smiled. Let's go. We have nothing to do anyway. We can watch from afar and not interfere. First of all, you can also observe other fighting styles and gain experience from it. Since Fengjiu said so, the others naturally had no objections. Therefore, after eating, they followed the sound. They did not get too close. Instead, they restrained their auras and leaped onto a tree, using the lush leaves to watch. Ha 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 ha. Kill all the men and take the women back. A group of about 30 evil cultivators was surrounding more than 20 men and women, old and young, who were training from clans. They noticed that the people who were surrounded were not weak. However, at this moment, their footsteps were weak and they obviously did not have much combat power. They just gritted their teeth and held on. If it were not for the support of a nascent soul powerhouse and 8 golden core cultivators in the clan's team, they would have been wiped out by the evil cultivators. The evil cultivators' combat power is not strong. Other than the Foundation Establishment cultivators, there are only 7 golden core cultivators. 2 of them are at the peak. With such combat power, they would have been killed by those clans if it were not for their despicable methods. Luo Fei stared at the people in front of him and said to them in a low voice. Being despicable is also a method. Clearly, these people's footsteps are weak and their bodies are swaying like that. They will die in less than an incense stick's worth of time. As Song Ming spoke, he stared at the 2 or 3 beautiful women who were surrounded in the middle. His eyes lit up as he said, however, these women are quite good-looking. Moreover, they're about the same age as us. It seems like they're here to gain experience. Hearing this, the corners of their mouths twitched, and they all looked at him. This pervert couldn't change his lustful nature no matter what. Noticing their gazes, he grinned and said, "Hee hee, don't worry, I won't act impulsively anymore. It's not like I'll lose my head when I see a woman." Ning Lang looked at the people in front of him. Biting a leaf he plucked from a tree, he asked, "Do you think the few of us can defeat these evil cultivators?" "I can't beat him one-on-one, but it shouldn't be a problem to trick him," Duan Yi said. Then, he paused and looked at Ning Lang as if he had thought of something. "What do you want?" Chapter 11:21. Ning Lang grinned when he saw that they were all looking at him. He rubbed his belly and said, "Look. Although their family's clothes are very low-key, the material is excellent. Ordinary families can't afford to wear this, so I think this family must be very rich." "And then?" they asked. "And then? Since we've met them, of course we'll make money." He said matter-of-factly and excitedly said to them, "Look, if we don't do anything, these people will definitely die. The men will die, and the women will fall into the hands of those heretic cultivators. They'll definitely suffer a fate worse than death. So I think we can do a good deed and make some money while we're at it. What do you think? This business is good, right? I think we can do it." He looked at them and said, hoping that they would agree. After all, if they really wanted to do it, their help would be indispensable. Hearing this, they looked at each other and finally looked at Feng Zhou. Seeing that they were all looking at him, Feng Zhou smiled and said, "You guys decide, I'll just watch. Don't expect me to do anything. If your lives aren't in danger, I won't do anything. Everything depends on you guys." Seeing this, they gathered together and discussed, "Then what should we do? They have more people and we have fewer people. We can't rush out like this. I have an idea. We'll give them a taste of their own medicine," Song Ming said in a low voice. He lowered his voice and said, "They're using medicine, so we'll use medicine too. We'll increase the dosage and knock them out, right? How can it be that easy?" Luo Fei shook his head. "This method might work against other people, but it definitely won't work against these heretic cultivators. There must be someone who's good at medicine among them. Otherwise, it's impossible that the nascent soul cultivator from that family would also be affected. Moreover, a medicine that even a nascent soul cultivator can't resist must be very powerful. Pfft. No matter how powerful it is, can it be more powerful than the ghost doctor's medicine?" Duan Yi pursed his lips and said. Ning Lang looked at Luo Fei and asked, "Then what good idea do you have?" "Hey, I do have an idea. Come closer, I'll tell you. Like this. Feng Zhou sat on a nearby tree branch with Tun Yun in her arms. She watched as they discussed. Before long, they seemed to be arguing again. In the end, they seemed to have reached an agreement. Ning Lang and Song Ming retreated a little further back and actually disguised themselves. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry when she saw them change into women's clothes. However, it was obvious that the two of them did not know how to comb a woman's hair. In the end, Song Ming directly braided her hair into 2 braids in front of her body. Ning Lang, on the other hand, made her hair into a bun, stuffed 2 fruits in front of her chest, and even put some powder on her face. She could not help but laugh at the sight. However, after the two of them were done, they winked at her and even pulled their skirts to twirl around, as if to say, "Look, do we look good?" She couldn't help but laugh. At the same time, she also realized that the two of them were unusually good-looking after dressing up as girls. Ning Lang was round and adorable to begin with. Now that he had two buns on his head and his rosy cheeks, he looked adorable no matter how one looked at him. Chapter 11:22. She could not help but be curious as she looked at the two of them who were dressed like girls. Where did they get these women's clothes from? She sat on the tree and watched. After the two of them disguised themselves as women, Song Ming actually tore his clothes apart, revealing his skin faintly. Ning Lang, who was beside him, followed suit and tore his clothes as well. He accidentally tore his clothes too hard, and the dress he was wearing was too small. With a tearing sound, it tore, revealing his white tummy. Seeing this, she placed her hand on her forehead. She felt that they were too reckless. However, in the next moment, she saw them running forward in a panic. Duan Yi and Luo Fei chased after them with swords in their hands. "Ah! Help!" The two of them screamed for help as they ran forward. As the two of them ran, the other two chased after them. When the sorcerers saw the people who had suddenly barged in, they instantly became alert. However, when they saw that it was only two young girls who were about 15 or 16 years old and a young man who was chasing after them, they sneered and stared at the two little girls who were dressed in disheveled clothes playfully. In their opinion, these people were not afraid of killing. However, they were thinking about the people who had suddenly barged in. No matter who they were, since they were in front of them, they naturally could not let them go. They had already made up their minds. As for the people from that family, when they saw the few of them, they initially thought that they were their saviors. However, when they saw their age and clothes, they knew that they were thinking too much. However, the next scene made them widen their eyes in astonishment. They saw that the chubby little girl who was running and calling for help, with a slightly plump figure and a snow-white tummy, actually threw out a large shining silver net. The large net covered half of the sorcerers who had retreated to the side when they saw the few of them appear. "Retract!" The chubby little girl shouted clearly. After the large silver net caught the sorcerers, it quickly retracted. At the same time, amidst the sorcerers' cries of surprise, the other girl grabbed something and threw it at the sorcerers who were caught in the net. Hiss hiss. Ah, that it was unknown what kind of powder it was. When it was thrown out, sparks flew out. When it landed on the sorcerers' bodies, they screamed in pain. The sparks burned their eyes so much that they could not open them. At that moment, Duan Yi and Luo Fei, who had caught up from behind, quickly attacked. A flame shot out and ignited the evil cultivators in the giant net. The flames burned on their bodies. They struggled to escape, but they couldn't cut the giant silver net. Soon after, they were engulfed in flames. They didn't have time to think about escaping. Instead, they were all trying to extinguish the flames on their bodies. Damn it! Among the cultivators who avoided him, 2 were in the early Aurus core stage, 1 was in the late Aurus core stage, and 2 were in the foundation establishment stage. At this moment, when they saw the miserable screams coming from within the silver net, they angrily rushed forward with their swords, wanting to pry open the silver net. Unexpectedly, the net seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds, and they were unable to pry it open. Duan Yi and Luo Fei turned around and attacked the sorcerers. Killing intent shot out from their hands. Their fierce moves and methods were frightening. They had learned the fastest way to kill people. In addition, they had trained for 2 months. Naturally, they were not afraid of those sorcerers. Chapter 11:23. Fortunately, they had caught them off guard and used the giant net to trap some of them. When they attacked those people again, they sprinkled medicine in their hands. In this way, no matter how strong they would not be able to hold on for long. They were giving them a taste of their own medicine. They would return the favor the way they treated those people. They were the weak against the strong and caught them off guard. When the people from those families saw this scene, they could not help but be astonished. When they saw the ruthless way those people killed those evil cultivators in an instant, their eyes could not help but move. What a fierce technique! What a beautiful movement technique! Their attacks were merciless and neat, as if they were veterans who had been training outside for a long time. They did not have the slightest bit of fear in the face of the evil cultivators of the gold core stage. Such courage could not help but make people secretly praise them. What an outstanding young man. One of the baby-faced young men put away the sword in his hand and took out an 8-star flywheel to attack. A fierce aura burst out with a terrifying killing intent. The flywheel swept through the air, and with a whoosh, it cut through the air and directly cut the throat of one of the gold core stage cultivators. That gold core stage cultivator dodged and was suddenly hit by a young man behind him. With a bang, he could not avoid the sharp blade of the flywheel. In an instant, the force of the flywheel and the force of the collision of the gold core stage cultivator and cut his head off. Hiss! Awe! Gasps were accompanied by cries of surprise. Those cries came from the people of that family and the evil cultivators. Some of the cries of surprise came from the women. Even though they had come out to train, they were still somewhat unable to accept the bloody scene where the head was cut off by the blade. The scene was so bloody that they couldn't help but cry out in horror and hide behind their families. Damn it! The few gold core evil cultivators clenched their teeth tightly, and gloomy killing intent burst out from their bodies. They clenched their swords tightly, and with a swoosh, they attacked Duan Yi. The sharp sword energy slashed down from above, and with a force that could destroy heaven and earth, they slashed towards Duan Yi. Be careful! Luo Fei shouted to remind Duan Yi. As he turned around, he condensed a visible spiritual aura in his hands and suddenly struck out. Twin dragons emerged from the sea. The pressure of the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage accompanied by the sharp airflow turned into 2 streams of spiritual aura that rushed out. The 2 streams of spiritual aura that could be seen with the naked eye whistled and leaped out of the sea like angry dragons from the deep sea. With a rumble, they pounced towards the evil cultivators of the gold core stage. Humph! You overestimate yourself. The peak gold core cultivator let out a cold snort. This cold snort carried the pressure of a peak gold core cultivator. It easily destroyed the 2 streams of qi that Luo Fei had sent out and dissipated in an instant. The 2 streams of air spread out in the forest, and the fallen leaves on the ground were swept away by the air currents. They flew a few meters away, and then calmed down as the air currents disappeared without a trace. Die! The gold core evil cultivator shouted in a gloomy voice as he clawed at Luo Fei's throat. Kid, I'll send you to hell myself. Chapter 11:24. Flaming Lion. Come out! Duan Yi shouted loudly, and a ray of light shot out from his body with a whoosh. As soon as it came out, it roared angrily and pounced towards the evil cultivator at the peak of the golden core stage. Roar! The sudden roar caused everyone's eardrums to hurt. At the same time, a majestic figure pounced out, and a cluster of flames spewed out. When the evil cultivator at the golden core stage saw this, he was shocked. He wanted to retreat, but it was too late. This attack contained a sure kill move, and its strength was so fierce that it was too late for him to withdraw it. Seeing that he was about to pounce towards the flames, he could only turn his body sideways and roll on the ground, trying to avoid the flames and the sacred beast that had suddenly appeared. However, Just as he was about to roll on the ground, the sharp sound of a blade of chi brushed past his ears. He focused his eyes, but he only had time to see the young man who had pounced towards him pull out a dagger and pounce on him, stabbing the dagger deeply into his chest. Pfft! He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his eyes widened in disbelief. At that moment, his body stiffened, and he could not believe that he had been killed by a young man. "You want to kill me?" "Humph. I'll send you on your way first." Luo Fei snorted coldly. The dagger that had pierced into the evil cultivator's chest dug with all its strength, and pierced deeper into his body. His ruthless methods and bloodthirsty expression made people's hearts tremble. "Ah!" There was a shrill scream from the other side. It turned out that Ning Lang had grabbed the leg of an evil cultivator, lifted him up, and smashed him heavily onto the ground. Even though there was sand on the ground, the force was so great that it made people's hearts tremble. The sound of bones breaking could be heard. It was so clear that it was hard for people to ignore it. Seeing the ruthless methods of the youths and their extraordinary combat skills and combat prowess, the members of the clan had different expressions on their faces. Especially when they saw that the youths had quite a few magical treasures on them, they were even more astonished. Not far away, Fingzhou watched with Tun Yun in his arms. He watched as Song Ming was sent flying by a mid-golden core cultivator's punch and spat out a mouthful of blood. He watched as Song Ming was stabbed in the shoulder. He watched as Ning Lang's face was also slashed by sword chi. His skin was broken and blood seeped out. He watched as Ning Lang screamed like a pig being slaughtered. "Ah! My face! You're trying to disfigure me. Stab me if you have the guts. Why did you hurt my face? Ah! I'll fight it out with you. Yes." With a muffled groan, Duan Yi was pincered by two evil cultivators in the middle stage of the Aurus Core realm. His abdomen was stabbed, and although it didn't seem to be a vital point, it was enough to make him choke. His battle prowess rapidly decreased, and he retreated slightly. "Watch your back." His warning was still too late. Luo Fei's arm was also slashed. The wound was so deep that bone could be seen, and blood gushed out. Tun Yun lay in Fingzhou's arms when it saw that they were all injured, and that their injuries weren't light. It raised its head slightly to glance at her, then lay back down again. It saw that they were injured, and its master naturally saw it too. Since its master didn't intend to do anything, then it would continue to watch. Kill! Kill! Chapter 1125. Whoosh! Boom! Ah! The fireball technique whizzed past and suddenly attacked the evil gold core cultivator in front of them. In that instant, it smashed into the evil gold core cultivator's body and exploded again, making a rumbling sound. At the same time as the sparks suddenly burst out, a shrill scream came from the flames and echoed in the forest for a long time. When the people of that family saw this scene, they were slightly surprised and somewhat shocked. Their hearts were undulating. However, they still wanted to continue watching and see how these people fought and killed these evil cultivators. However, in the end, they could not resist the invasion of the medicinal effect. They only felt their eyelids become heavier and heavier. In the end, one by one, they fell down and lost consciousness. Wind blade. Kill. Song Ming's expression turned cold. At this moment, a rare cold and hard expression appeared on his handsome face. He threw the sword in his hand and formed a complicated seal with both hands. A stream of air flew out from his body and he used his mind to control the sharp sword in midair. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The sharp sword instantly split into 8 and formed a sword formation with a whoosh, piercing towards another evil gold core cultivator. The 8 swords attacked at the same time. No matter how capable the evil gold core cultivator was, he could not resist and was pierced into a hornet's nest at this moment. Hiss. Ah. Ning Lang and Luo Fei saw that the two of them killed the remaining evil cultivators in a short while and could not help but let out a sigh of relief. They were still thinking that if the two of them could not handle it, they also had their family's secret technique and their own attributes to fight. However, it seemed that they would not be of any use. No matter what, it was good that the danger was gone. After the two of them let out a sigh of relief and retracted their spiritual aura, Ning Lang hurriedly ran forward to support Duan Yi, whose abdomen was injured, because his injuries were the lightest. How are you? Come, sit down first. After helping him sit down, Ning Lang hurriedly took out medicine and bandaged him. Looking at the amount of blood flowing out of his abdomen, he could not help but be shocked. How did you get injured so badly? Just as he was about to apply medicine, he heard a voice. Let me do it. Feng Zhou walked over with Tun Yun beside him. He came to Duan Ye's side and squatted down to check his wounds. He said to Ning Lang, go take a look at their injuries and help bandage them. All right. When Ning Lang saw that it was him, he felt relieved and walked away. He helped Song Ming and Luo Fei over and helped them bandage their wounds first. At the same time, he chattered endlessly, look, this is the consequence of not choosing a good treasure. Your clan isn't small and you're rich. Why don't you know how to get a few protective treasured clothes like mine? At least this way, I won't be injured too badly when I fight with others. Hearing him say that, the others rolled their eyes. How could something like that be obtained just because one wanted it? A life-saving Dharma treasure like his was usually something that could only be encountered by chance. If one could spend money casually, they would be everywhere on the streets. On the other side, Feng Zhou checked the wound on Duan Ye's abdomen and said, the wound is quite deep, but fortunately, it didn't injure any vital parts. After applying medicine on you, don't fight with others before the wound recovers, lest the wound on your abdomen split open and become infected. As she spoke, she cleaned his wounds and sprinkled some medicine for treating external injuries. After bandaging his wounds, she saw that his face was pale and his forehead was covered in beads of sweat. She couldn't help but sigh and shake her head. She took out a pill and handed it to him. Chapter 11:26. Seeing this, Duan Yi took the medicine and swallowed it. Thank you. Feng Zhou, what's that good stuff? I want it too. After Ning Lang helped the two of them over, he leaned forward and blinked his eyes at the leisurely red-clothed Feng Zhou. They were all injured and bleeding, but he was the only one who looked the same since he came in. There were no injuries on his body at all, and even his clothes were as clean as before. Comparisons were odious. When they heard Ning Lang's words and saw him looking at Feng Zhou like a puppy trying to please him, the corners of their mouths twitched. Feng Zhou glanced at him and asked, you want it? Yes, I do. Ning Lang grinned and nodded. Sure. Stab yourself in the stomach and I'll give you one pill. Hearing this, Ning Lang scratched his head and smiled sheepishly. Forget it then. I don't like to get hurt. How painful would it be to stab yourself with a knife? All right, hurry up and clean up the mess. She gestured and walked to the side, leaning against a tree trunk without saying anything. All right, you guys rest for a while. As he spoke, he quickly cleaned up the mess. After making sure that those evil cultivators were dead, he collected their chinkuan bags and other things. In less than half an incense stick's worth of time, he returned to the group. These sorcerers must have taken a lot of things. I took a look and there are many things in the chinkuan bags. As he spoke, he divided the things into several portions and handed them to them. Even Feng Zhou had a portion. Nobody knew when it started, but this had become an unspoken rule. Fengzhou did not refuse and kept the items. Those people seem to have been drugged and are still unconscious. Ning Lang looked at Fengzhou and said, I just tried, but I can't wake them up. Pinching their philtrum doesn't work either. How should we wake them up? Fengzhou should know how to use drugs. Seeing this, Fengzhou waved his sleeve and handed him a bottle. Put it under their noses and smell it. They'll wake up naturally. All right. Ning Lang took it and jogged over. First, he placed the bottle under the nose of one of them. Not long after, that person slowly woke up. Awake? Come, pass it to them and let them smell it. They'll wake up too. He held out the bottle in his hand. That person was none other than the nascent soul cultivator. He looked at the young man who was dressed like a girl but had a man's voice and nodded. He took the pill and placed it under the nose of the person beside him. Not long after, that person also regained consciousness. Let everyone smell this. It can cure the poison in your body. The nascent soul cultivator said and gestured for the person to take the bottle. Yes. The middle-aged man responded. After receiving the items, he placed them under the noses of those people for a while and watched them wake up one by one. Many thanks for your help, young masters. The nascent soul stage cultivator cupped his hands and bowed slightly to the few of them before nodding his head. As he expressed his gratitude, his sharp eyes swept past the few youths in front of him. He saw that the few people who had fought with the heretic cultivators earlier were all injured. At this moment, some of them were leaning against the trees to rest, while others were standing. When his gaze landed on Fengzhou, who was dressed in red, he paused for a moment. This red-clothed young man did not appear earlier, but from the looks of it, he was with these youths. Chapter 11:27. An ordinary person wouldn't be able to cast such a powerful fireball technique. Moreover, this young man was able to cast such an elemental attack at such a young age. It was obvious that he wasn't an ordinary person. Moreover, these young men were only in the Foundation establishment realm. They actually dared to fight against those evil cultivators. Their temperament was something that even the younger generation of their clan couldn't compare to. Among the few of them, judging from their previous battle prowess, this baby-faced youth had the strongest battle prowess. He was actually able to kill a golden core evil cultivator with his Foundation establishment cultivation. In the future, he would be even more extraordinary. You're welcome. We didn't save you for nothing, Ning Lang said with a smile. Ning Lang's eyes narrowed into slits as he spoke. He patted his round belly with both hands and said to the nascent soul cultivator, so it's like this. I just counted. There are 29 of you here. Each of you only needs to give us 100,000 to save your life. Of course, this is only the price for those in the Foundation establishment realm. As for the 8 golden core realm cultivators, you'll have to give us 200,000. As for this nascent soul realm cultivator, you'll have to give us 300,000 in addition to 4 magic weapons. He looked at the people whose faces had darkened and said with a smile, we saved your lives. You won't deny that, right? We won't rob you because we're not bandits. Otherwise, we would have killed you one by one while you were unconscious and robbed you of your belongings, right? So, we saved so many of your people and were injured. It's normal for us to ask for some money to save our lives. Don't you think so? It was as if he didn't see that the clan members' faces had darkened in shock. He still had a smile on his face. His narrowed eyes couldn't see the light in his eyes. What's the difference between this and looting a burning house? A cultivator in his 30s clenched his fists and shouted angrily. He obviously didn't expect that these young men would dare to ask for such a price. Their great elder had personally expressed his gratitude to them, yet they still dared to ask for money and artifacts from them. How can you say that? We're the ones who saved you. Ning Lang looked at him with displeasure. Didn't you hear? Those evil cultivators said to kill the men and capture the women. If we didn't save you, you would have been dead. What's wrong with asking for some money to save your lives? You don't want to pay. You. Enough. The nascent soul realm cultivator shouted in a deep voice. He glanced sharply at the man who spoke. Who told you to be so unruly? Back off. The man gritted his teeth angrily. He could only respond and retreat. That's right, look, we saved your lives. If it wasn't for us, to be. The nascent soul cultivator relaxed his expression and smiled. Ha ha ha, young master, please don't lower yourself to his level. This old man will apologize to all of you, then. Chapter 11:28. Unexpectedly, Ning Lang raised his chin and flicked his sleeves. Names are just code names. There's no need to mention them. Seeing this, some of the clan members frowned and looked displeased. Some of their faces darkened, thinking that these youths didn't know what was good for them. A nascent soul cultivator asked for the other party's name after introducing himself, and he didn't say anything. If this wasn't pretentious, then what was? Only a few people were expressionless and watched quietly. Even the nascent soul cultivator only paused for a moment after hearing Ning Lang's words. He smiled and said, "All right then. Please rest for a moment. I'll have someone bring out the gold coins and magic tools." As he spoke, he turned around and whispered a few words to the others. Not long after, a Qianquan bag was handed to the nascent soul cultivator, who handed it to Ning Lang. "Sir, here are 5 million gold coins and 5 magic tools for self-defense. Please accept them." Ah. 5 million gold coins and 5 magic tools for self-defense. That's a lot. Ning Lang looked at him and said. Ha ha ha, this Lin hopes to make friends with you all. Please don't stand on ceremony and accept this extra gift. Actually, compared to how you risked your lives to save me, this amount of money is really nothing. If you come to the Lin residence in the imperial city of a first-class country, I will treat you as my distinguished guests. When the clan members saw that their great elder was speaking so politely to them and even took out so many gold coins and magic tools as gifts, they couldn't help but be surprised. However, they didn't ask much and just looked at the 5 people. Apart from being a little young, having outstanding looks and a little more courage than others, they didn't see anything special about them. Why did the great elder treat them differently? When the rest heard the nascent soul cultivator's words, they also glanced over and didn't say anything. Instead, they took out their water bags and drank a few mouthfuls of water to quench their thirst while waiting for Ning Lang to finish dealing with the matter. When Ning Lang heard the nascent soul cultivator's words, he gently patted his stomach with his fingers and tilted his head in thought. Then, he reached out and took it. All right then. Since Senior Lin is so polite, we won't refuse. He, I don't like other things, but when it comes to money, I can't resist. He took the Qianquan bag and examined it before putting it into his space. Then, he said to them, then we'll take our leave. We'll meet again if we have the chance. As he spoke, he left with Fengzhou and the others. Not long after, they disappeared from those people's sight. First Elder, this brat is too presumptuous. He actually opened the Cosmos sack to check in front of us. He is already so rude, why does First Elder still treat him with such respect? That's right. There are only 5 of them, and they are only at the Foundation establishment stage. If we attack, they won't be able to survive. These people are really too impudent. The Great Elder has already reported his surname and asked for their names, yet they still ignored him. That's enough. A low and majestic voice came out of the head elder's mouth. It contained the pressure of a nascent soul cultivator, which made them all shut their mouths. None of them dared to speak. Chapter 11:29. Hearing his words, everyone was stunned. They hurriedly circulated the spiritual energy in their bodies, only to realize that the spiritual energy in their bodies was circulating very slowly. If they wanted to fight, it would not be enough. Seeing everyone's stunned expression, the nascent soul cultivator continued, moreover, they were able to deal with those evil cultivators, so they are naturally not ordinary people. I saw that they had many magic treasures on them, so they are definitely not the disciples of ordinary families. Since that is the case, and they saved us, why should we make an enemy for ourselves? Hearing this, everyone's originally angry mentality calmed down. Thinking about it from another perspective, if they had not saved them, they might have already fallen into the hands of those heretic cultivators and lost their lives. Speaking of which, these few youths are really bold. They actually dared to come in with only 5 people, and they even managed to come here. That's right. The elder said that it is better to have one more friend than one more enemy. I think that makes sense too. Those people were discussing. On the other side, Fingzhou and the others had already gone a distance away. They did not rest until they came to a place that they felt was safe. Ning Lang took out the things and distributed them. At the same time, he grinned and squinted his eyes at the few of them. Although I am injured, it is easy to get these things. Moreover, it increases my combat power in actual combat and my reaction speed is faster. Don't you think so? Duan Yi glanced at him. You are not the one who was injured. Of course you would say that. He was injured in his stomach. Although it was not fatal, it was extremely painful when he moved. That's right. Next time, we should not come here. Who knows, we might be killed by those people in the end after we saved them. In this world, there is no lack of ungrateful people. Luo Fei also said. He could see that those people were not grateful, but were unhappy. If it were not for the suppression of the nascent soul cultivator, they would have already attacked. Don't worry, they won't dare to attack. The effect of the medicine in their bodies will not recover in a short time, so we are safe. Ning Lang said and looked at Fingzhou. Fingzhou, we are all injured. Should we find a place to rest for a few days? Duan Ye's abdominal injury is not light. It is not good for him to keep walking like this. It is easy to pull the wound. All right, let's rest here. Duan Yi, rest here. Tun Yun, watch over him. The 3 of you, come with me. I'll help you set up the formation today. Then, I'll help the 3 of you set up a barrier here. Try not to fight for the next few days. Let your injuries heal first. Formations and barriers. We only know the basics. It's precisely because you only know the basics that you want to learn. Can you guarantee that you won't be trapped in arrays or barriers in the future? She raised her eyebrows and looked at them as she spoke. Hearing his words, the few of them had no choice but to follow him around and learn how to set up formations and barriers. 3 days later in the morning. Remove the cloth, let me see your wound. Fengzhou came to Duan Ye's side and sat down, indicating for him to remove the cloth on his abdomen. I feel that the wound is a little itchy. It doesn't hurt anymore. I think it's going to be better. As Duan Yi spoke, he took off his coat and untied the cloth that was tied to the wound. Let's go get some water and pick some wild fruits, Song Ming and Ning Lang said as they walked out together. Chapter 11:30. I know. The 2 of them replied without turning back. Not long after, they walked out of the barrier and out of the array, heading towards the water source. This wound has formed a scar. Fingzhou said as he applied ointment on his wound and bandaged it again. This ointment can make your wound as smooth as before without leaving any scars. Hearing the words smooth as before, Duan Yi was speechless. He rolled his eyes and said, I'm a man. Even if I have many scars on my body, it's no big deal. Smooth as before. I'm not a sissy. As he spoke, he stared at Fingzhou in front of him and muttered softly, do you think everyone is like you? You're a man, yet you make yourself look like a pretty boy. Your skin is better than a woman's. Although his voice was soft, Fingzhou still heard it. He couldn't help but chuckle, are you jealous of my good skin? However, I suggest you don't mention the word pretty boy in front of me. In the past, there were people who said I was a pretty boy. Do you know what happened after that? Hearing this, his face tensed up. Seeing his expression, he knew it wasn't anything good. Thus, he didn't ask and instead said, I know. I won't say it next time, okay? Alright, your wound is almost healed. If you have nothing to do, get up and move around. Don't be slow after resting for 2 or 3 days. Fengzhou stood up and flicked his robes. At this moment, Luo Fei came forward and asked, Fengzhou, are we still in the outer region of the Hell Mountain Range? We haven't entered the inner region yet. Of course not. This is only the outer region. Hearing this, Luo Fei was a little speechless. This place is too big. We've been here for a few months and we're still in the outer region. Some of the journey is by flying on swords. If we walk, we won't be able to walk out of the outer region in a year, right? That's for sure. This place is connected to the 8 great empires. What are the 8 great empires called? That's the Sky City. Even if we fly on swords, it's impossible to walk out of here in a short time. Speaking of this, she smiled and looked at the two. Perhaps, we can give it a try. How long will it take to cross this place to the Sky City of the 8 great empires? I'm not that bored. Luo Fei curled his lips and said, every once in a while, the Nebula sect will come down to recruit people. In addition to taking the teleportation array to go there, there is also their flying ship. With their protection, there is no need to worry about encountering danger. Only a fool would think of crossing the Death Mountain range to go to Sky City. As he spoke, he suddenly thought of something. He looked at Fingzhou with wide eyes and said, don't tell me that you have such a plan. No matter how strong you are, I advise you not to act recklessly. Even a nascent soul cultivator would not have the confidence to traverse the depths. Fengzhou smiled. How is that possible? It would take too long to cross this place. I won't do it. The few of them chatted for a while. Seeing that Ning Lang and Song Ming still hadn't returned after some time, they couldn't help but be slightly startled. They said somewhat worriedly, why have the two of them been gone for so long? The water source is not far from here. Just as they were talking, they heard a cry of alarm from outside. The familiar voice was mixed with panic, making the hearts of the few people in the barrier sink. They instantly rushed out. Chapter 1131. Ah! Save me, save me. In midair, Ning Lang was caught by the huge eagle and couldn't move. His 4 feet were suspended in the air as he looked down and called for help. Until now, he still didn't know how he was caught by the eagle that suddenly swooped down from midair. He saw Song Ming's shocked and panicked expression below. He saw Song Ming crying for help. He saw Song Ming trying to fly up on his sword to save him, but he was slapped by the eagle's wings. A strong wind accompanied by a strong pressure attacked him, and he fell from midair. Ning Lang. Fingzhou, who came out of the barrier, only saw a huge eagle holding a person in its claws above the trees and in midair. When he looked closely, the figure that was flying further and further away and calling for help in panic was the chubby and fair Ning Lang. On the ground not far away, Song Ming, with blood at the corner of his mouth, was standing up with the help of a tree. Tan Yun, I'll leave their safety to you. In a hurry, Fingzhou only had time to say this before he threw out the feather and chased after the eagle. Song Ming, how are you? How did Ning Lang get caught by the eagle? Duan Yi and Luo Fei hurried to his side to support him. They saw that his face was slightly pale and his breathing was slightly chaotic. It seemed that he was seriously injured. Cough, cough. He coughed and held his aching chest. He said, we were filling water at the water source. The eagle might have noticed us in mid-air and flew down from above. It grabbed Ning Lang with its claws and flew up. I tried to save him, but I was slapped down by the eagle's wings with a hidden force. That's a divine beast. You're lucky that you didn't die. Tan Yun, who was squatting next to him, said. Divine beast. The few of them were stunned. That eagle was a divine beast. Yes, that's already a divine beast. It should be a ferocious beast in the inner circle. No divine beasts have appeared in the outer circle. At most, they are at the peak of holy beast. But don't worry, my master has already gone after it. She will definitely be able to save that little fatty. Hearing its words, the few of them felt a little solemn. Ning Lang was taken to the inner area by a divine beast. Would Fingzhou be in danger if he chased after Ning Lang alone? When they thought of this, their hearts felt heavy and uneasy. They admitted that they did not have the ability to deal with a divine beast, let alone the ability to defeat one. After all, even a nascent soul stage cultivator would not dare to say that they could come out unscathed against a divine beast. Swallow Cloud, you're Fingzhou's contracted beast. Let's go after him. Even if our strength isn't that great, we might be able to help. They had been through so many things together. Now that they knew that the two of them were in danger, they couldn't just leave them be. Hearing this, Tan Yun glanced at them and nodded. Then follow me. With me around, ordinary ferocious beasts won't dare to come close. One had to know that it was a divine beast, but it had always restrained its divine beast aura. If it hadn't done so, those ferocious beasts would have long fled after sensing its aura. Hence, the few of them looked at each other and followed it to chase after Fingzhou. Meanwhile, in various parts of the outer forest, some people couldn't help but be slightly surprised when they saw the giant eagle in the sky grabbing a person. Because it was too far away and too high up, they couldn't see the person's face clearly and didn't know who he was. Chapter 1132. Everyone was dumbfounded. That young man doesn't want to live, does he? He actually chased after that eagle on a feather. Hiss. That eagle is a divine beast. That's a ferocious beast from the inner area, it's flying towards the inner area. Heavens. It's a divine beast, that's the highest level apart from the ancient divine beasts. Even nascent soul cultivators can't deal with a divine beast. That young man is courting death. That young man looks familiar. He's dressed in red, and he's riding on that rainbow glass feather. Ah! I remember now. Previously, when that young man was intercepted in mid-air, he single-handedly killed those who intercepted him. Yes, yes, yes. It's him. It's him. Newborn calves aren't afraid of tigers. He doesn't know how powerful a divine beast is and actually dared to chase it into the inner area. Furthermore, he's riding on that feather to fly in midair. That's putting himself in the line of sight of those flying ferocious beasts and making himself their target. What a pity, what a pity. That day, I was still saying that this young man is extraordinary and has a bright future. Today, I see that he's courting death. Sigh. In various parts of the forest, some teams and itinerant cultivators gathered together to discuss. If this happened to them and they saw their companions being captured by a divine beast, would they save them? The answer was definitely no. because they didn't have the ability. It would be a waste of effort even if they went. By then, not only would they not be able to save anyone, they would also lose their lives. Even a fool wouldn't do such a thing. In the sky, Fingzhou stepped on the feather and chased after the eagle in front. That eagle's flying speed was extremely fast, so even when it saw that there were humans following it, it didn't bother to pay attention to them. A mere human was like an ant in the eyes of a divine beast. It could kill them with a single slap. They were too weak to be looked at, so of course, it wouldn't care about the human behind it. As for Fingzhou, because the eagle's flying speed was too fast, and because it had flown a distance before she caught up, she couldn't close the distance in a short time. Especially at this moment, a flock of blood-red long-legged birds with pointed beaks flew out from the forest. Ah! She couldn't help but jump in fright when those birds opened their mouths and let out cries. Those cries were somewhat similar to those of crows, but also like the screams of humans. They were hoarse and sharp, and somewhat ear-piercing. When she saw the flock of long-legged birds flapping their wings and flying towards her with their sharp beaks, she took out her long sword. With a swoosh, she slashed out several rays of sword chi towards the birds. Half of the long-billed birds were cut in half and fell to the ground, screaming and making ear-piercing sounds. The remaining long-billed birds tried to pounce on Fingzhou but were killed several more. In the end, less than 10 of them could only flap their wings and cry in the air, staring at Fingzhou. They flapped their wings and flew away, not daring to get close. Seeing this, Fingzhou put away his sword and glanced coldly at the birds. He then looked ahead and saw that the distance between them had widened again. He hurriedly chased after it. Chapter 1133. Fingzhou, who was riding on her flying feathers once again, finally closed the distance between them after chasing for half a day. However, at this moment, another flock of black birds flew out from the forest and rushed towards her. She saw that there were at least 100 black birds. Although they were only the size of a fist, she did not think that these birds were harmless. Although these black birds were only the size of a fist, they were still a type of ferocious bird. Furthermore, judging by the bloody aura surging around them, she knew that they were carnivorous. Seeing that the distance between her and the eagle had closed, and another flock of eyesores had appeared, her expression immediately turned cold, and the murderous aura around her became even more intense. She circulated the aura in her body and injected a wisp of flame. As the flock of black birds flew towards her, she threw out the sharp sword in her hand. The sword flew directly towards the flock of black birds, while she continued to chase after them without hesitation. The eagle in front was enraged. It flapped its wings and turned around. When it saw the tiny figure of the human chasing after it, its eyes burned with rage. This time, it no longer grabbed the food at its feet and flew back to its nest. Instead, it flapped its wings and stopped in mid-air, waiting for the human to come closer. Fingzhou stopped 10 meters away from the eagle on her flying feathers. She looked at Ninglang, who had already fainted and his limbs dangling in mid-air. She frowned and stared at the eagle. Let him go. Human, how dare you? Are you trying to order this noble one to do something? The eagle's sharp gaze contained the coercion of a divine beast as it swept towards Fingzhou. When it opened its mouth, it released a sound wave that was mixed with air, wanting to send the human in front flying. Who knew, however, he saw that the tiny human standing in mid-air on the feathers was not afraid at all. Under the pressure of the mythological beast, she did not feel uncomfortable at all. Seeing this, the mythological beast narrowed its eyes and stared at her with its sharp eyes. It asked, "Human, who are you?" How could an ordinary human not be afraid of its divine beast coercion? Furthermore, this human's strength was not very high. With such weak strength, how could she not be frightened under its divine beast coercion and remain unmoved? Old Eagle, release my men. Otherwise, you will regret it. As she spoke, Fengjiu took out the azure edge sword. The azure edge sword in her hand emitted a sharp and frightening sword chi, pointing directly at the divine beast eagle. Old Eagle stared at Fengjiu. Seeing the human's red robes fluttering in the wind, his hand holding a sword emitting a green glow, and his body emitting a powerful and sharp aura, Old Eagle couldn't help but feel a little apprehensive. Where did this human come from? It had a vague feeling that something was not quite right. It felt that this human might really not be afraid of it. Therefore, it flapped its wings and retreated. With a whoosh, it instantly flew 10 meters away. Trying to escape. Leave him behind. Fengjiu narrowed her eyes. With a turn of the azure edge sword in her hand, a sharp sword chi shot towards Old Eagle. The azure edge sword chi streaked across the sky and attacked Old Eagle, who was 20 meters away, as fast as lightning. Sensing the murderous intent and danger behind it, Old Eagle turned back to look. Its eyes narrowed and it quickly dodged. Even so, its wings were still struck by the sharp sword chi and 2 feathers fell off. Treacherous human. How dare you hurt this noble one's black feathers? Chapter 1134. It raised its head and screeched. With a flap of its wings, it turned around and flew straight up. Then, it swooped down from a high altitude. Its sharp beak was like a curved blade as it faced the wind blades, aiming straight for Fengjiu's head. I've been waiting for you. Fengjiu snorted coldly. She stepped on the flying feather and used the momentum to rise up. The sword in her hand spun with her movement, forming a whirlpool in midair. Phew! Phew! 2 air currents, one above and one below, collided. The powerful air currents and pressure vibrated in the air, causing the air currents in midair to tremble slightly. It was as if they were being distorted by the 2 air currents. Boom! The 2 streams of air collided with each other, and at the moment of collision, there was a rumbling sound. The streams of air were sent flying outwards, and they were like waves that had been slapped into the air, spreading outwards. It was also at this moment that Feng 9 and the eagle were both sent flying for some distance under the impact of the 2 forces. The eagle's body swayed a little, and some of its feathers fell off during the fluttering. However, its claws still held on to Ning Lang tightly. Fengjiu was also afraid that the sharp sword aura would hurt Ning Lang, so she did not dare use all her strength to attack. She only used a fraction of her strength, but this gave the eagle a chance to escape. Seeing the eagle quickly escape the moment it was sent flying by the air currents, she gritted her teeth and said, "Put him down. Otherwise, I'll definitely destroy your nest." Upon hearing this, the eagle that was flapping its wings in front trembled. It was unknown if it was out of shock, fear, or anger. Its body trembled in midair and fell a few meters before stabilizing. Human, how dare you threaten this king? This king will definitely teach you a lesson. You want this king to release this human. This king won't release him. This king will make him an appetizer for my son. If you dare follow me, I'll definitely capture you too. It was infuriated. It had become a divine beast for so many years, but this was the first time it encountered a human who dared to threaten to destroy its nest. She was simply courting death. If it wasn't for the fact that the red-clothed human was so thin, it would have captured him too. At this moment, even if it admitted that the red-clothed human was not easy to deal with, it would not show any weakness with its mouth. This human was too hateful. It wanted this human to not be able to catch up to it. It wanted this human to go crazy because he could not find it. Thinking of this, it flapped its wings with all its strength and flew into the sky. Its speed was several times faster than before. In the blink of an eye, it was so far that Fengjiu, who was behind it, could only see the eagle's figure. However, this time, she strangely did not give chase. Instead, she stared in the direction where the eagle had left and curled her lips into a meaningful smile. Only when the figure was completely out of her sight did she chase after it. The eagle did not know that she had sprinkled something on its feathers during the previous battle. So what if it was a divine beast? As long as it provoked her, even the Eagle King would become a little chick. She did not believe that it would be able to escape with Ning Lang under her nose this time. Chapter 1135. Strange, how could this be? Its wings were so heavy, and it was so strenuous to fly. The eagle was slightly alarmed, and as its speed gradually decreased, it could not help but feel uneasy. Something that had never happened before had happened. How could this be? Could it be that it was injured in the previous battle? The more it flew, the lower it went. Even if it flapped its wings to fly higher, it would not be long before it would descend again. Something was wrong with its body, and it became vigilant. It looked back and did not see the red-clothed human, so it secretly heaved a sigh of relief. It was all so strange. For some reason, the human gave it a feeling of shock, making it involuntarily want to escape. It was really strange. Such a thing had never happened before. Even when those nascent soul stage cultivators encountered it, they either died or fled. Who would chase after it like that red-clothed human? Fortunately, its nest was not far from here, and it was not deep in the inner area, but somewhere in the outer area. It had deliberately chosen this place because it was afraid that its child would be targeted by other ferocious beasts before or after it was born, so it chose such a dangerous place. Gritting its teeth, it flew a little lower, and took a shortcut. After flying over a mountain, it flew to a cliff. After flying over the cliff, it came to a huge protruding peak in the middle of the cliff. There was an eagle egg in a haystack, and there was nothing else. It threw the white and fat Ning Lang onto the haystack, then flapped its wings and flew to another stone pillar to lie down and rest. Its heavy body and heavy eyelids made it completely unable to support itself. It returned to its nest, lay down on the peak stone, and fell into a deep sleep. After the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, Fengjiu still had not arrived, but Ning Lang woke up first. When he saw that there was an egg with a white pattern next to him, he could not help but be startled. He instinctively covered his mouth and looked around. He saw that the surroundings were filled with fog, but vaguely, he seemed to be able to see the huge Eagle King lying on the other peak stone. When he saw the Eagle King, his heart tightened, and he felt that he was really too unlucky. Otherwise, why would the Eagle King not catch anyone else but him when he and Song Ming were both drinking water there? He did not know that it was because of his white and fat body that he was targeted by the Eagle King. It chose him as food for its future child. He quietly moved aside, and with a curious heart, he reached out to touch the egg. When he touched it, he found that the egg was warm. Although it was not very hot, it was strangely warm, and he could not help but touch it again and again. He picked it up and sized it up. He had seen ordinary eagle eggs before, but he had never seen an egg laid by a ferocious level eagle. It looked ordinary, but the patterns on the egg were different. Knowing that he was caught as food for this newborn eagle, he couldn't help but feel relieved. It was fine as long as he wasn't eaten by the Eagle King. At the very least, he still had a chance to live. Moreover, Feng Jiu had chased after him. He would definitely find him here. Chapter 1136. There's actually a barrier. Why is there a barrier in this place? He was a little dumbfounded. How could an eagle know how to set up a barrier? He had never heard of such an ability. However, after a moment of astonishment, he remembered that he had learned some methods to break the barrier from Feng Jiu. Thus, he gathered the spiritual power in his hands and condensed it between his fingers. Accompanied by the pressure of a foundation establishment cultivator, he pointed forward. Break! He saw a stream of spiritual energy attack. When it collided with the barrier, it was absorbed by the barrier. The scene was like a drop of water dissolving into a lake. It disappeared without a trace and did not cause any waves. How can this be? He muttered in a low voice, puzzled and puzzled. After trying again and again, he returned to the haystack and sat down listlessly. He unconsciously touched the eagle egg with one hand and gently knocked on it with his fingers. I can't break it. What should I do? I don't know when this little eagle will break out of its shell. It means that it wants to eat me. This feeling is really not good. He muttered there, as if this was the only way to ease his nervous and uneasy feelings. He wanted to break the barrier, but he could not break it and escape. In his boredom, he picked up the eagle egg and thought that if he took this egg out and sent it to an auction, he might be able to sell it for an extraordinary price. However, how was he going to take such a big egg out? Would it break out of its shell at any time? Ning Lang. After a while, when he heard Fingzhou's familiar voice, his eyes lit up and he looked towards the direction of the voice. Fingzhou. Fingzhou, I'm here, I'm here. He shouted excitedly and stood up. When he saw the red figure coming over on the flying feathers, his entire heart was filled with excitement. Fingzhou looked around and noticed the figure of the eagle lying on a stone peak not far away. Seeing that it was lying there motionless, he walked over to where Ning Lang was. As soon as he got closer, he realized that there was a barrier set up there. There's a barrier here. I tried to break it, but I can't. Fingzhou, what should I do if I can't get out? He said worriedly, still holding the eagle egg in his arms. Are you okay? Are you hurt? She looked him up and down, her gaze sweeping past the egg in his arms. Ning Lang shook his head. I'm not hurt, but I was frightened. My legs are still weak now. Hearing this, she rolled her eyes speechlessly. All right, as long as you're not hurt. Step back, I'll break this barrier first. She gestured for him to step back. This barrier can't be broken, and it's strange. Why is there a barrier here? Could it be that the eagle knows how to set up a barrier? He asked doubtfully. He could not understand. Fengzhou explained, this is not an ordinary barrier. This is a divine sense barrier that only divine beasts have the ability to set up. It uses divine sense as protection. If you break this barrier, the divine beast who set up this barrier will be the first to notice. As she spoke, she gathered spiritual power in her hands. Spiritual power condensed in her palms, visible to the naked eye. She reached out her palms and pressed them against the barrier. She slowly closed her eyes and released her divine sense. Her lips opened slightly, and a soft voice came out of her mouth. Break. Chapter 1137. When Ning Lang saw that the barrier in front of him had been broken, he could not help but step forward happily. Fingzhou, I knew you would come to save me. When she heard that, she reached out and flicked his forehead. Aren't you the fastest runner? How come you couldn't escape after being caught by that eagle? Hey, this is different. That eagle caught me when I wasn't paying attention. If I knew, I would have been chased by it even if I had to run. All right, let's go quickly. This place is really not suitable for humans to stay in. As he spoke, he glanced at his surroundings. When he saw that the space around them was so deep that he could not see the bottom, he could not help but shrink back a little. He thought to himself that this eagle was simply abnormal. It actually built its nest in such a place. However, when he thought about it, it was normal. This place was so high up, and it was separated from the forest on the other side. Other than birds, ordinary ferocious beasts could not come over. As for birds, this place was protected by the divine sense barrier, which formed a very good protection. However, it was probably only suitable for birds to stay in such a place. Let's go. Fengjiu reached out and pulled him over. However, when she saw the egg in his arms, she raised her eyebrows and asked, "Are you planning to steal this egg back?" "Humph. This eagle is too outrageous. It actually said that it wanted to catch me and feed me to its hatchling. Since that's the case, I'll steal this egg back and make it anxious." When she heard that, Fengjiu looked at the egg with the pattern on it and said, "That eagle is male. How can it lay an egg? Moreover, this egg doesn't look like an eagle's egg, does it?" As she spoke, she took the egg and examined it carefully. She became more and more certain. This is definitely not the eagle's egg. However, it might really be an eagle's egg. It's just that the pattern is a little strange. As she spoke, she looked at him and said, "You can take it away, but there's a little beast inside. You have to protect it carefully. You can't leave this place and casually break this egg." Hearing this, Ning Lang's eyes lit up. "Don't worry, I will. I can hatch it myself. I can raise it like my son." The corners of Fengjiu's mouth twitched. He glanced at the excited little fatty and didn't say anything else. He only said, "Let's go." Then, he led him away on the rainbow-glazed feather. Previously, Ning Lang was caught unconscious and brought here. At this moment, he looked down from mid-air. There were many ferocious beasts in the forest. They seemed to have noticed them and raised their heads to stare at them. Ning Lang could not help but shudder when he met those ferocious and bloodthirsty eyes. This shouldn't be the inner area, right? Why are there more ferocious beasts here than the place we were at before? If the periphery is divided into 3 stages, then this is the innermost area of the periphery. It is also the place closest to the inner area. Not only are there many ferocious beasts, but they are also abnormally fierce. As Fengjiu spoke, he glanced down. You can still see people outside, but there are fewer people here. Then you didn't encounter any danger when you came in like this? He was a little surprised. As he spoke, a flock of long-legged birds with blood-red feathers and long beaks rushed out from below. "Ah! Ah!" Chapter 1138. That's for eating meat. Fengjiu said coldly. He glanced at him and added, "I especially like fat and juicy ones like you." "Ah! Don't scare me." He held the egg in his arms tightly and stared at the long-legged birds warily. He took out his long sword and planned to attack them when they got close. However, at this moment, an angry roar with the coercion of a divine beast came from behind the two of them. The coercion and the roar spread out like ripples in water, startling the long-legged birds that were pouncing on Fengjiu and Ning Lang. They screamed and flapped their wings to flee quickly. "Humans! How dare you steal my child? You're courting death." The deafening voice was accompanied by monstrous anger. Fengjiu turned around and saw the eagle swooping down at them at an extremely fast speed. He immediately took Ning Lang and flew into the forest, using the lush trees to block the eagle's attack. "It's chasing us, it's chasing us!" Ning Lang exclaimed and carefully hid the egg in his arms. Almost instantly, he was brought into the forest by Fengjiu and pushed into the trees. "Go!" She shouted and sent him dozens of meters away with a hidden force. She told him to leave quickly because it was a divine beast. He couldn't withstand the pressure of a divine beast, and he couldn't block it. Ning Lang turned around and shouted, "What will you do if I leave? Can you do it alone? How about I stay and help you?" He ran back to help as he spoke. That eagle is a divine beast. You can't block its pressure and divine sense. I have to take care of you if you stay here. Quickly run forward and meet up with Duan Yi and the others. They should be catching up from behind. Hearing this, Ning Lang hesitated for a moment. Seeing the frightening aura of the eagle swooping down from the sky, he hurriedly activated his spiritual power and aura and ran into the forest at lightning speed. The flying cloud boots on his feet played a very good role at this time. Even if some ferocious beasts wanted to get close to him, he was already far away before they could do so. Bang! Whoosh! Fingzhou, who was in the forest, looked back and saw that Ning Lang had run far away. She was relieved. This wasn't the inner area, so the relative danger wasn't too great. Moreover, this kid was very afraid of death and was very sensitive to danger. She was very relieved to let him escape on his own. Hearing the sound, they looked forward and saw the eagle in the sky swooping down with its wings folded. A sharp and terrifying air blade came out of its head. It went against the wind and crashed into the forest below. As it crashed down, it spread its wings and cut the trees like a pair of scissors, revealing the red figure hidden among the trees. However, when its sharp and crazy eagle eyes saw that the little fatty holding the egg was not beside Fengzhou, its killing intent surged, and it flew down to attack. Human. Give me back my child. Fengzhou leaped on her tiptoes and gently dodged. Your child. Can an eagle like you lay an egg? Even if you can't lay such a strange egg. That egg was filled with the aura of a divine beast. It's definitely not your egg. Maybe you stole it from somewhere. Give the egg back to me. It roared angrily. Its wings were as sharp as knives, and it attacked Fengzhou below. The eagle stretched out its claws and clawed at Fengzhou, creating a few traces of wind. Chapter 1139. He planned to lure it away before looking for Ning Lang. Looking at the red-clothed human moving through the forest below, the eagle in mid-air was furious. It was good at flying, and its combat power was also in the sky. It could not catch this cunning human who hid in the forest and did not fight with it, so it could only chase after him. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Bang bang bang! The sharp sound of airflow resounded throughout the forest. The sharp wind blades sliced through the trees, causing them to fall to the ground with loud bangs. The pressure of the mythological beast as well as the sharp killing intent frightened the fierce beasts in the forest, causing them to retreat one after another. In the forest, the eyes of some cultivators lit up when they noticed the commotion. It's the divine beast's pressure. There's actually a divine beast in the outer circle. Quick! Let's go take a look. Let's see what kind of divine beast it is. If it has strong combat power, we can work together to subdue it. Those cultivators said and did not avoid it. Instead, they chased in the direction of the sound. For some people, danger had long been out of their minds. What they wanted was to do what was best for them. After chasing for a few hundred meters, they saw the eagle in the sky through the trees and could not help but be shocked. It's a combat eagle. An elementary divine beast is not difficult to deal with. If we work together, we should be able to subdue it. However, that eagle seems to be chasing after something. What egg is it talking about? Egg? Could it be that someone took its egg? The egg laid by a divine beast is absolutely valuable. Thinking of this, those cultivators looked excited and quickly divided into two teams. A nascent soul cultivator will lead a team. One team will chase after the person who stole the egg, and the other team will follow me to catch that eagle. As a result, the 70 to 80 people were divided into two groups. Each group was led by a nascent soul stage cultivator. In the front, Fengzhou still had to sweep through the forest. It wasn't until after a certain distance that she suddenly felt that something was wrong behind her that she turned around to take a look. He saw dozens of cultivators riding on their swords. They were holding something in their hands and shot out a large silver net to catch the eagle, dragging it down from the sky. Bang! A loud rumbling sound was heard, and even the ground shook violently. Her footsteps faltered slightly as she looked at the place where the trees had fallen. Dust and smoke were rising from there, and it seemed to be accompanied by a shrill scream. Hearing that scream, she originally wanted to take a step forward, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't move. Logically speaking, she should take this opportunity to leave and meet up with Ning Lang and the others. However, when she heard the screams of the eagle behind her, she hesitated. No matter what, the eagle didn't cause her any harm. On the contrary, even though the egg wasn't laid by it, they did take it away. If it was caught by those people because of this, then... Thinking of this, she walked towards the direction of the voice. However, after walking for a short distance, she saw a group of people swarming in front of her and surrounding her. "Brat, did you steal some eggs?" A burly man with a scar on his face raised his chin and asked. Chapter 1140. The leader of the nascent soul cultivators stared at the handsome young man in red robes in front of him. His eyes flashed with a touch of deep thought and vigilance. This young man's expression was not alarmed or fearful. From the moment he saw them appear, he did not show any fear or panic. It seemed that something was not right. Thinking deeper, this young man actually had the ability to steal an egg from a divine beast-level eagle. It was obvious that his skills were not ordinary. Moreover, he was not afraid of the divine beast's aura. Under the attack of the eagle, he was still safe and sound. It was obvious that he was not an ordinary person. It was precisely because of the misgivings in his heart that he calmed down and blocked the two people in front of him. He took a step forward and said to the handsome young man in red, "Hand over the eagle egg and I'll let you leave safely." When he said this, the people behind the nascent soul cultivator could not help but be stunned. "Let him go. How can we? This kid looks like he has a lot of good things on him. Of course we should kill him and take his things. Once we've caught our prey, we've never let him leave alive, right?" The nascent soul cultivator glanced at the person who spoke with a gloomy gaze and shouted, "Shut up." The big man was shocked by the shout and hurriedly lowered his head and took a step back. However, he was not angry. After he retreated, he raised his head and glared fiercely at the young man in red in front of him. Fengjiu glanced at them and asked, "Did you catch that eagle? Were these people in cahoots with those people?" There were at least 70 to 80 people in total. This team was not ordinary. Moreover, from what she saw, besides the nascent soul cultivator in front of her, there were 7 golden core cultivators. It was probably the same on the other side. With such a team and such strength, there should be no one in the periphery who dared to go against them. "That's right, they're also one of us," the nascent soul cultivator said and stared at the leisurely Fengjiu. "As long as you hand over the eagle egg, I'll keep my word and let you leave safely. I won't touch anything on you." The calmer and more idle the young man in front of him was, the more he felt that something was wrong. If it wasn't for the egg of the mythological beast, he would never waste his time here. It was a taboo to make an enemy out of someone whose strength he couldn't figure out. Fengjiu looked at the nascent soul cultivator and could roughly guess what he was thinking. He probably couldn't tell her cultivation level, and seeing how calm she was, he felt that she had a trump card and didn't want to make an enemy out of her. That's right. No matter where you are, especially for nascent soul cultivators, it would be unwise to make an enemy out of someone without knowing the other party's background. But what was she going to do? Looking at the current situation, how could she take on so many people alone? Even if he could, he would be exhausted. If that was the case, why not? Her eyes flickered and she smiled. You want those eagle eggs? That's fine, I'm just playing with it anyway, but... Hearing the young man's words, the nascent soul cultivator was slightly surprised. He became vigilant and asked, but what? But you also know that I'm exhausted from being chased by that eagle for such a long time just for that egg. If I just give it up like this, it wouldn't be right, right? She smiled and narrowed her eyes as she stared at them. Chapter 1141. When she heard the rustling sound, Fengjiu shuddered and instinctively turned around. However, she only saw leaves swaying behind her. The rustling sound came from the leaves that moved without any wind. What made her wary was that other than the rustling sound, there was also a hissing sound. It sounded like the hissing sound of a venomous snake. Thinking of this, her heart trembled. Just as she was about to leave, she heard the nascent soul cultivator's voice. It sounds like the hissing sound of a snake. The two of you, go and check it out. The nascent soul cultivator gestured for the two people behind him to go and check it out. At the same time, he impatiently said to Fengjiu, hurry up and take out that egg. If this continued, who knew what would happen? If this young man was still so tactful, then don't blame him for being impolite. Even if he was wary of the other party's strength, he was only one person. Furthermore, he was still a young man. How could a nascent soul cultivator and so many people behind him be afraid of one person? Bang! Bang bang bang! Fengjiu laughed when she heard this. You'd better deal with the rest first. Of course, that's on the premise that you're still alive. As soon as she finished speaking, she took a deep breath and stepped on the feathers to soar into the sky. With a wave of her sleeve, she sprinkled something on the ground and flew in the direction of the old eagle. Chase! The nascent soul cultivator's expression was gloomy as he shouted. However, at this moment, the two people who were sent to check on the eagle cried out in pain. Ah! Help! A panicked and horrified voice cut across the sky. As soon as it sounded, it fell silent. It was as if something had swallowed it in an instant. Everyone who heard the voice was shocked and quickly retreated. However, at this moment, the hissing sound came closer. When they looked again, they saw a huge venomous snake slithering towards them. It was a peak holy beast. There was a big red bump on its head. The snake's three-forked tongue flicked out its blood-red tongue, causing everyone to scream in fear. Ah! It's a huge snake. And a large group of small snakes. That's a group of venomous snakes. Hurry up and run. Amidst the screams, the cultivators all ran back. In their panic, they bumped into each other. Some who were knocked down were directly stepped on by the people behind them. When they struggled to stand up, they were stepped on by the people behind them. They had no chance to stand up. Hiss! The Snake King hissed and raised its huge snake head. Its pair of ferocious and bloodthirsty snake eyes scanned its surroundings. When it caught a glimpse of the familiar red figure in the air, it hissed and chased after it once again. The group of snakes behind them surged forward and pounced on the cultivators at a disorderly speed, causing them to scream incessantly. At this moment, some of them even forgot that they could fly into the air on their swords to avoid the snakes. In their panic, they actually ran through the forest on foot. At some point in time, there were many small colorful snakes coiling around the trees in the forest. As the Snake King hissed, they pounced on the cultivators. The people who were bitten couldn't escape and fell to the ground. They were quickly covered by the snakes and their bodies couldn't be seen. The snakes sucked the blood and bit the flesh. In a short while, the cultivators were left with only a pile of clothes. Chapter 1142. After Feng Zhou escaped from there, she got down from the flying feather and hid in the woods with her aura. She saw that the mythological beast eagle was caught in a huge net by those people. In addition to the special materials used to make the net, there was also a drug on it. It was a drug that could make beasts feel weak all over. That's right. Otherwise, how could these people have captured this eagle? Looking at the eagle on the ground struggling to stand up, but unable to do so, she sighed in her heart. After thinking for a while, she took out some medicine from her space and went upwind to release the smell of the medicine. Slap! The whip struck the eagle hard, causing a few of its feathers to fall off. The eagle closed its mouth and didn't make a sound. It only used its sharp and unyielding eyes to stare at the nascent soul cultivator who was whipping it. You want me to submit? Not a chance. You still won't agree. I think you think I won't kill you, right? The nascent soul cultivator stepped on the eagle's beak. You should know that you're not the only divine beast. As long as you enter the inner area, there will be many divine beasts. It's not like we can't do without you. On the contrary, if we don't want you, you'll only end up dead. You want me to submit? You sinister and despicable humans can dream on. The eagle angrily cursed and opened its beak to peck him, but was kicked to the side. Humph! You ungrateful bastard! The nascent soul cultivator angrily cursed and whipped the eagle a dozen more times, as if to vent his anger for not being able to subdue it. Strange, there seems to be some noise over there. A cultivator said and looked in the other direction in astonishment. It's the sound of battle. They must have caught up to the egg thief and started fighting. That's true, with a nascent soul cultivator leading the team, who can escape? At this point, several people laughed. However, at this moment, a Foundation establishment cultivator rubbed his temples. Strange, why do I feel dizzy? Me too, my body feels so sore, like I don't have any strength. Me too. Bang! One by one, the weaker Foundation establishment cultivators fell to the ground. When the Golden Core cultivators and the Nascent Soul cultivator saw this, they couldn't help but feel apprehensive and quickly held their breaths. Who is it that is hiding their head and showing their tail, playing such despicable tricks? Come out! Come out! Hearing their angry shouts, Fengzhou only smiled. What despicable means? To deal with these people, he could only think of ways to use tricks. She had a way to defeat them without using her hands. Would she be so stupid as to use her sword to kill them? One had to know that the highest level of killing was to be silent. While those people were shouting, she circled behind the eagle. Seeing the eagle turn its head and angrily stare at her, she grinned and said in a low voice, "Don't shout, I'm here to save you." Hearing this, a trace of doubt and wariness appeared in the eagle's eyes. Would this human be so kind? However, just as Fengzhou pulled the large net, the people in front suddenly turned around and stared in the eagle's direction. At the same time, Fengzhou shot out the silver needles in his hand. Chapter 1143. The large net swung outwards, drawing an arc in the air before throwing out a gust of wind towards the group of people. The group of people cursed, but when they tried to circulate their qi, their faces turned pale. Feeling that the qi in their bodies was unable to circulate and their bodies were gradually losing strength, the group of people was shocked. Ignoring the red-clothed youth and the old eagle who had suddenly appeared in front of them, they hurriedly searched for medicine in their chinquan bags. Walking in this place, they had some antidote pills and antidotes. Otherwise, they would have died hundreds of times over. However, the antidote pill and antidote liquid were undoubtedly precious. Even if there was one, only people above the Jindan stage would have it. It was impossible for those in the Zhuji stage to have it, unless they got it from others. Otherwise, when encountering poisonous things, unless the accompanying people who knew a little about medicine could cure it, they could only wait for death. Quick, eat this medicine. Fingyo placed a pill next to the old eagle's mouth. Seeing that it was still staring blankly at her, she couldn't help but urge, hurry up. Don't you want to live anymore? Don't worry. I won't harm you. If I wanted to harm you, I wouldn't have come back to save you. I only helped you because you were caught and pitiful. Hurry up, hurry up. Hearing this, the old eagle thought about it and agreed. If this human really wanted to harm it, she wouldn't have come back to save it. Thus, it opened its mouth and swallowed the pill. After swallowing the pill, Old Eagle quickly felt his powerless body gradually recover. A warm current flowed through his body. Sensing the changes in his body, Old Eagle stiffly said, "Human, don't think that this king will forgive you just because of this. Hurry up and return the egg to me." Fingyo glanced at it and released her divine sense. Sensing that the giant snake was already heading towards them, she hurriedly said, "How about this? Let's talk in the sky. It's too dangerous on the ground." "What danger?" "Those stupid humans have already sat down. It's obvious that your medicine is more powerful than theirs." It looked towards the group of people who were sitting cross-legged and trying to force the medicine out of their bodies. "Of course it's dangerous. There's a snake below." She raised her voice slightly. Feeling that the giant snake was flying closer and closer, she hurriedly stepped on her flying feathers and soared into the sky. Snake. This king is the nemesis of snakes. This king is never afraid of snakes. When those little snakes see this king, they always run as far away as possible. Before Old Eagle could finish his words, he saw a giant snake fly out of the forest. When he saw the body of the giant snake, even he was given a fright and hurriedly flapped his wings to fly into the sky. Bang bang. Hiss. The huge snake then came to the place where the eagle was lying. Raising its head, it spat out its forked tongue and stared at the man and the eagle in the air. At the same time, it kept slapping its tail forcefully as if it was unwilling, furious and aggrieved. It raised its head and watched Foam 9 while slapping its tail. If not for the terrifying hissing sound of its forked tongue, it really looked like a kid who was acting shamelessly. In mid-air, the startled old eagle flapped his wings and followed Fingyo. He glared at her and asked in an unfriendly tone, "Did you also steal this snake's egg?" Chapter 1144. The old eagle looked at Fingyo's mocking smile, clearly not believing his words. When it heard the screams below, it looked down and saw the cultivators surrounded by the snakes and devoured by them. Humph. If this king wasn't injured, this king wouldn't be afraid of these insignificant snakes. With that, it looked at Fingyo and said, "This king's egg. Return the egg to this king, and since you saved this king's life, I won't hurt you." "That egg isn't yours either, right?" Fingyo asked, looking at the old eagle who was hopping mad at her words. "There's the aura of a divine beast on it, so it's definitely not your egg. Furthermore, you can't lay an egg as a male. You." The old eagle's murderous aura spread out again, its sharp eyes fixed on Fingyo, as if it would fight her if she said that the egg wasn't its. Seeing the angry old eagle, Fingyo's eyes flickered and smiled. "I have a good idea, do you want to hear it?" "What idea?" "This king only wants my egg." It looked at the human who was smiling like a fox with an unfriendly and guarded gaze. "In any case, you're a divine beast. However, if you're in the outer regions, you can be considered one of the best, but if you're in the inner regions, there will be many higher-ranked beasts than you, right? Why don't you find someone to form a contract with?" She smiled and suggested, "That little fatty isn't bad. If you form a contract with that little fatty, won't you be able to guard that egg?" Furthermore, that egg will be much safer with that little fatty than with you. This king won't form a contract with a human. Humans are all sinister and cunning. Even foxes aren't as cunning as humans. Hearing this, her mouth twitched. How can that be? Humans also have good people, just like me. Unexpectedly, the old eagle glanced at her and turned its head away without saying anything. That's right, what kind of egg is that? Where did you get it? She asked again, looking at the old eagle who was staring down from the side. Someone in the forest saw the man and eagle chatting side by side in the sky. They couldn't help but think that their eyes were playing tricks on them. They rubbed their eyes and looked again. They still saw that the man and eagle were not fighting, nor were they chasing after the prey. They were just chatting. This king gave birth to it. The old eagle emphasized again. Hearing this, Fingio couldn't help but laugh. Ha ha ha, you gave birth to it. Could it be that the eagles in the Hell Mountain range are different from other places? Even males can lay eggs. If you keep talking, this king won't be polite to you. Old Eagle glared at Fengjiu in embarrassment and anger. Then what about the little fatty? Little fatty, where did he take my child? Ah, Fengjiu said with a smile. Just as he was about to continue, he saw a whoosh sound coming from the distant sky. That sound was like a firework shooting into the sky, forming a flower of sparks that scattered in all directions. When he saw that signal, Fengjiu was slightly surprised. However, when he saw that the signal was coming from the deepest part of the outer regions, his expression changed. Damn it! Why did it go there? Chapter 1145. Duan Yi, Luo Fei, and Song Ming, who were heading towards the forest, saw the signal and their hearts sank. Oh no! That's Ning Lang's distress signal. Quick! They immediately rode on their swords and followed the light. When they were in the air, they saw a red figure in front of them and a huge eagle following beside it. Am I seeing things? Isn't that Fengjiu and the eagle that captured Ning Lang? Song Ming said in astonishment. He was a little confused as he looked at the two figures in the distance. It's Fengjiu, but why is he with that eagle? Could he have subdued that eagle? They definitely recognized the red figure. It was Fengjiu without a doubt. But what was up with that huge eagle? Why was it with Fengjiu? Wasn't Ning Lang captured by that eagle? If the eagle was there, why was Ning Lang still in a deeper place? Hearing the three of them talking, Tun Yun, who was being replaced by Song Ming, glanced ahead and said, "That's impossible. My master would never accept that eagle. How could a mere divine beast make my master accept it? That's impossible. A mere divine beast." The three of them looked at each other and were speechless. If it weren't for the fact that the Hell Mountain range was connected to the 8 great empires, how could there be a mere divine beast? After all, even their ancestor didn't have a divine beast. The few of them did not say anything more to it. Instead, they sped up. While they were flying through the air, a flock of long-legged birds attacked them. When Tun Yun saw this, he immediately released the pressure of a divine beast. With a low roar, he shook the birds off their feet and dropped them to the ground. In the depths of the periphery, Ning Lang's face was slightly pale. His clothes were torn, and he was limping as he walked because his calf was injured. In front of him, 2 ferocious tigers were drooling as they stared at him. Although these 2 ferocious tigers were only divine beasts, they were flying tigers. They could run on the ground and fly in the sky. He originally wanted to find Duan Yi and the others, but he met these 2 flying tigers halfway and was chased by them. If he didn't have the flying cloud boots, he would have been eaten by these 2 flying tigers. Big brother tiger, let's discuss this. Can you not eat me? Although I'm white and fat, I really don't taste good. He smiled apologetically and softly as he retreated. However, the two tigers in front of him, one on the left and one on the right, stared at him and closed in on him. Their mouths were open and drooling, revealing their sharp canine teeth. Ning Lang's heart thumped at the sight. It's over, it's over. I'm going to die here, and I'm going to die without a complete corpse. If I'm eaten by these two ferocious beasts, I'll probably only be left with my clothes and bones. Maybe I won't even be enough for the two flying tigers. They'll even eat my bones. Then I'll really die without a sound and without a corpse. Before he was even in danger, he had already thought of the worst outcome. When he thought of how he would end up without a corpse, his heart trembled. He stared at the two flying tigers and gathered his courage to shout. Chapter 1146. Or else I'll fight you to the death. He swallowed his saliva and reached into his chinkuan bag. He stared at the flying tiger that was roaring and pouncing on him. He was so frightened that he immediately screamed and threw out the talisman in his hand. Ice Arrow Talisman. Attack! Whoosh whoosh. As soon as the talisman was thrown out, dozens of ice blades appeared in the air. With a whoosh, they flew towards the two flying tigers. The ice blades were as sharp as blades, and the talisman was thrown out at an extremely fast speed. One of the two flying tigers was unable to react in time, and its body was cut by the ice blades, causing blood to seep out of its body. Roar! The other flying tiger let out a blood-curdling scream. The number of ice blades flying towards them was too great for it to dodge. One of the ice blades pierced deeply into its foreleg. The ice pillar was still emitting cold air, and the wound was oozing blood. The flying tiger's entire body fell to the ground. Roar! Roar! The screams were mixed with angry roars. The divine beast's coercion attacked Ning Lang. However, Ning Lang had already fled into the depths of the forest the moment he threw out the ice talisman. How could he be so stupid as to stand there and give them a chance to bite him? Roar! The other flying tiger roared angrily. Its vigorous body leaped up and chased after Ning Lang. Ning Lang had a lot of Dharma treasures on him. Otherwise, if it were any other three of the four, they would have become food for the flying tigers. The fact that he was able to survive while being chased by the flying tiger was not an easy feat, and this was all thanks to the life-saving treasures in his space. Ah! Save me! Don't chase me anymore. The chubby figure ran as fast as the wind, leaving no trace behind. He ran in the forest in a panic, not knowing where he was. He kept running deeper into the forest, releasing signals from time to time so that they wouldn't know where he was. He thought that he was running towards the outer area and that Duan Yi and the others were there. However, he did not know that he was running further and further away. Fingzhou, Duan Yi, and the others who were chasing after him were flustered and exasperated. They cursed inwardly. Why was this damn fatty still running towards the inner area? Did he want to die? Roar! Hearing the tiger's roar from below the forest, Fingzhou's expression changed slightly. A tiger. This area is the flying tiger's territory. That little fatty running into the flying tiger's territory can only wait for death. Old Eagle, who was flying beside Fingzhou, said coolly, with a hint of schadenfreude. Fingzhou glanced at Old Eagle and said, "If he dies, there won't be anything left of your egg. Will too." Upon hearing this, Old Eagle froze, unable to speak for a moment. It flapped its wings and sped up, but when it saw where the signal had come from, it couldn't help but speak again. This little fatty is really courting death. In front of us is the territory of the man-eating bears. One of the man-eating bears is already a divine beast. Even those two flying tigers don't dare to cross the border. This little fatty actually ran in. Hearing this, Fengjiu frowned. What flying tiger's territory and man-eating bear is in this area? Chapter 1147. The direction that the little fatty ran in has already crossed the flying tiger's territory. However, in the territory of the man-eating bears, other than bears, other beasts have to fight if they want to go over. Otherwise, even the flying tiger will only become their food. As Old Eagle spoke, he increased his speed and said, "We flying eagles are different. The beasts on the ground can't hurt us, so we know the territory better than other beasts. You'd better hurry. Otherwise, with that little fatty's strength, he'll definitely be torn apart by the man-eating bears." Hearing this, Fengjiu increased his speed again. Not long after, he arrived at the flying tiger's territory. When he saw a flying tiger lying under a tree and licking its injured front leg, he didn't stop and continued forward, looking for Ning Lang's whereabouts. Ning Lang, who was running in the forest, saw that the flying tiger was no longer chasing after him. He couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief and sat down under a tree. "Scared me to death." He supported his injured leg and sat against the tree. When he didn't see the flying tiger, he hurriedly took out HBM medicine and bandaged his injured leg. When he saw the scratches on his leg caused by the tiger's claws, his heart trembled and tears welled up in his eyes. "They bullied me because I can't beat two tigers. They actually injured my leg like this. How despicable. Ouch. It hurts." After applying the medicine, his leg twitched in pain. He gritted his teeth and hurriedly bandaged the wound with a cloth. Smelling the faint smell of blood in the air, he panted and looked around. "Where is this place? Why haven't I seen Duan Yi and the others after running for so long and releasing so many signals?" He mumbled and looked around. There were trees all around him. If it wasn't for the direction of the sun, he wouldn't be able to tell which direction he was in. However, just as he thought of this, his entire body stiffened. He looked in the direction of the sun and was instantly dumbfounded. No way. This. Why did he run in the opposite direction? He remembered that they were at the periphery of Roar. Suddenly, a roar rang out, startling him so much that his heart trembled. He hurriedly held onto a branch and leaped up a tree, using the trees to hide. Standing at a high point, he saw the 2 to 3 meter tall big black bear in the forest walking over with thumps, and even used its nose to sniff around. Seeing this scene, he was stunned and lowered his head to look at the wound on his calf that was bleeding. In this way, wouldn't it be easy to be discovered? Thus, after some thought, he felt that even if he ran in the opposite direction, even if he was further away from Duan Yi and the others, he should still be closer to where Fengjiu was. Thus, instead of hiding below, he might as well ride his sword in the air and wait for him. This way, it would be easier for him to discover him, wouldn't it? However, with his current appearance, it would be dangerous for him to ride his sword. He had to guard against ferocious beasts like the flying tiger that would chase after him and bite him, as well as those strange man-eating birds. But if he didn't leave, it wouldn't be safe for him to stay here either. No matter what choice he made, the risk was 50-50. Chapter 1148. He flew out of the forest on his magic tool. When he saw the familiar figure in the air, he was so excited that he almost cried, "Fengjiu." During this period of time, they had become accustomed to trusting and relying on him. No matter what kind of situation they were in, as long as he was there, they believed that they would be able to turn misfortunes into blessings. It was the same when he was caught by the eagle, and it was the same now. However, why was the eagle following Fengjiu? He was bewildered, excited, worried, and puzzled. And the moment he flew up, Feng Zhou's heart relaxed. This fatty's brain finally came around. However, in the next moment, her expression changed and she cried out in alarm. Be careful. A giant tiger suddenly soared into the sky from the forest. Unlike the injured one she saw earlier, this one's front legs were not injured. It spread its wings and flapped its wind blades as it flew straight up. The tiger opened its mouth and pounced on the fatty in the air. Ah! Ning Lang cried out in alarm. He immediately took out his long sword and used his spiritual power to attack the tiger that was pouncing on him. The swift and fierce sword chi shot out a stream of spiritual power, but it only injured the tail of the flying tiger's wings. However, it did not stop its attack. Instead, its bloodthirsty killing intent became even more ferocious. Roar! The angry roar was accompanied by the pressure of a holy beast. It shook Ning Lang's eardrums until it hurt. The qi and blood in his body also surged, faintly wanting to burst out. Under the pressure of the holy beast, his face turned pale. He tried his best to stabilize his body, but because he wanted to avoid the pouncing flying tiger, his body swayed and he fell from the flying magic tool. Ah! A panicked voice cut across the sky, and at that moment, a red figure shot out and caught him before he hit the ground. The flying tiger in the air, under the pressure of Old Eagle's divine beast aura, fled back into the forest in panic, not daring to stay a moment longer. Feng Zhou, I thought I was going to die. He opened his arms to hug Feng Zhou, but he was stopped by Feng Zhou's shoulder. Seeing this, he could only look at Feng Zhou with tears in his eyes. How did you get hurt so badly? Feng Zhou frowned and looked at the blood seeping out of Ning Lang's calf. She helped him to a tree and sat against it. Your bandage is not good. It's too careless. The wound is still bleeding. It was those two tigers who scratched me. Both of them were holy beasts and they bullied me, so I kept running. If I didn't run fast enough, I would have been eaten by them before you could save me. Speaking of this, he felt wronged in his heart. Feng Zhou untied the blood-stained cloth on his calf and couldn't help but frown. His flesh was badly mangled, and the flesh inside had been flipped out. It was clear that his injuries were not light. It's easy to get infected if you apply medicine and bandage the wound before cleaning it. Bear with it, I'll clean it up and apply medicine again. She said as she took out something from her space to clean his wound. Feng Zhou, why is that eagle with you? Chapter 1149. Little fatty, return that egg to me. I won't pursue the matter of you stealing the egg for the sake of this red-clothed human. The eagle's beak opened and closed as it spoke, its sharp gaze fixed on Ning Lang. This egg. He touched the egg in his arms reluctantly and took it out. He wanted to hand it over but was reluctant to do so. Suddenly, he heard a cracking sound and instinctively looked down. He saw that the egg had cracked open by itself. Following the cracking sound, a small head popped out of the eggshell. It was a wet little thing that looked like a newborn bird. Unexpectedly, the little thing pecked his finger with its sharp beak, causing blood to seep out. Ah! He was shocked and withdrew his hands. The little thing in his hands fell to the ground along with the eggshell. The little thing jumped out of the eggshell and flapped its wings that only had a few tiny hairs. Then, it ate the eggshell. Looking at the hairless little thing that looked like a newborn bird gnawing on the eggshell, a wave of spiritual energy surged from its body and dried its wet body. The hair on its body grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was colorful like a parrot. The eagle at the side quickly came forward to check on it. It stretched out its wings and lowered them to the ground, calling out, "Good child, come to father." However, after the little thing finished gnawing on the eggshell, its body seemed to have grown a size. It raised its head to take a look, then ran towards Ning Lang. It jumped into his arms in a few steps and hid in his lapel, only popping its little head out. Child, child. The little thing stared at the eagle and said those two words as if it was copying its words. Fengjiu and Ning Lang both burst out laughing. You gave birth to this little thing. It doesn't look like it, right? Look, it's calling you child. At this point, she could not help but laugh. On the other hand, Ning Lang's face was full of joy. He stroked the little thing that hid in his arms and was so happy that his eyes narrowed into a line. You little fellow, at least you have some conscience. I didn't waste my efforts to protect you all the way here. You're such a good girl. Good boy, it said excitedly as it rubbed against Ning Lang's clothes. Only the eagle was dumbfounded. Looking at the little thing that didn't recognize it and was instead hiding in the little fatty's embrace, it couldn't help but stare blankly, unable to react. What are you going to do? Why don't I follow Ning Lang? As you can see, this little thing pecked his finger as soon as it came out to form a contract with him. Now that the relationship is there, it's useless even if you don't want to admit it. As Fengjiu spoke, he looked at Ning Lang and gestured to him. Ning Lang understood and hurriedly said, That's right. Why don't you follow me? That way, you can protect it too. You see, it's just born, it's too weak. Moreover, I'm not weak either. If I encounter another Saint Beast, I might lose my life. Protecting it is also protecting me. What do you think? I'll take care of you. Hearing this last sentence, the corner of Fengjiu's mouth twitched slightly. He turned his face away slightly. This fool, couldn't he be more serious? The eagle was devastated. Seeing that the child it was protecting actually recognized a human and nodded, it felt sullen. Now that it heard the conversation between the two of them, it couldn't help but lie on the ground and think. Chapter 1150. Although it didn't lay the egg, it had guarded it for so long. Now, it had become someone else's. No matter how it thought about it, it couldn't get over the hurdle in its heart, and it couldn't swallow this anger. Awoo! Suddenly, a bear's roar was heard, followed by several other bears' roars. The loud roar shook the air and caused the air to fluctuate. Loud banging sounds were heard, as if something was running towards them. It's that man-eating bear. Old Eagle said, and stood up to look into the forest. He said to them, Let's go. There are many man-eating bears in this area, and one of them has reached the level of a divine beast. The man-eating bear is extremely strong. You're no match for it. Let's go. Awoo! Bang bang. As soon as Old Eagle's voice fell, several large black bears rushed out of the forest. Each of them was 2 to 3 meters tall, and they stared at them with their sharp claws. They bared their teeth and roared at them. When Fengjiu saw these big black bears, she felt a sense of familiarity. This was because she thought of Little Black who was guarding the cave for her. They did not fight. After the eagle flapped its wings and flew up, Fengjiu also leaped onto the flying feather with Ning Lang. They stopped in mid-air and looked at the big black bears that were staring at them below. One of them walked out from the back. His head was bigger than the rest of the man-eating bears. The man-eating bear stared at the two of them, then looked at the eagle, and finally turned to leave. Ning Lang heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, if we fight again, I'll probably be more injured. Alright, let's go. Let's meet up with Duan Yi and the others first. Fengjiu said, and led Ning Lang back on flying feather, while Old Eagle led the way for them. Not long after, they saw Duan Yi and the others coming over on their swords. Fengjiu. Ning Lang. Are you okay? Seeing that the two of them were still alive, their anxious hearts finally relaxed, and they could finally put their hearts at ease. I'm injured, and it's not light. It hurts so much. Ning Lang said with a bitter face. Then, he thought of the little thing in his arms and revealed an excited smile. Oh right, let me tell you. I picked up a bird, and it's not an ordinary bird. He took out the little bird in his arms and showed it to them. Look, this is it. Old Eagle snorted from the side and turned his head away, not saying a word. On the other hand, Duan Yi and the others were extremely surprised as they looked at the little bird. Actually, they felt that it was similar to a little chick. The only difference was that the feathers on this little thing's body were multicolored, and were somewhat similar to a parrot. Alright, what are you talking about in the air? Let's go down, Fingzhou said as he led Ning Lang down into the forest. The rest of them followed behind. We saw the signal and chased after it. Thankfully, we had Swallow Cloud. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to stop the long-legged birds in midair, Luo Fei said. He looked at Fingzhou and asked, what's up with that eagle? Why did it follow us? Hearing this, Fingzhou smiled and told them what happened. In the end, he said, just like that. Rather than saying that it followed us, it's better to say that it followed Ning Lang's contracted bird. Oh. Chapter 1151. However, when they saw that Fingzhou had set up a barrier around them, they couldn't help but be startled, asking, why did you set up a barrier here? Could it be that there's still some danger? Even if there was danger, there were sacred beasts and divine beasts here. What was there to be afraid of? After Fingzhou set up the barrier, he finally relaxed and went to rest under the tree. He gestured for them to sit down, saying, didn't I tell you to be careful of the snakes here? Let me tell you, I met one just now, and it was the giant snake that chased after me. That giant snake's battle strength isn't weak, and it's also highly poisonous. If we can guard against it, then we should guard against it. Otherwise, when we find out, it'll be too late. She said as she thought about it. They hadn't even reached the inner circle, and it was already like this in the outer circle. If they went in again, she was afraid that they really wouldn't be able to protect themselves. If something happened to them while they were training, she wouldn't be able to explain it to their families and the academy's principal. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but ponder, thinking, should she make a slight change? Should she change her original plan? After all, they were only at the foundation establishment stage, and hadn't reached the golden core stage. That's right, for the foundation establishment stage, she could find a place and use the medicinal liquid to let them enter the golden core stage. This way, they would be able to see some results from this training. As for the inner circle, she might be able to go there, but it would be better if they didn't. After making up her mind, her tense heart gradually relaxed. If they were only at the outer circle, she was confident that they wouldn't meet with any fatal danger. Fingzhou. Fingzhou. Song Ming called out a few times, seeing that his expression was slightly focused, as if he was thinking about something. And she came back to her senses and looked at him, asking, what's the matter? I should be the one asking you if something's the matter. Why are you sitting there in a daze? Are you alright? What are you thinking about that you're so engrossed in it? Song Ming asked. If he didn't see that there were no wounds on his body, he would have thought that he was injured. She shook her head, saying, it's nothing, I was just thinking that since everyone is here, let's go back to the place where we set up the barrier. You guys have more or less finished your training. The inner region is still too dangerous for you guys who only have the strength of foundation establishment. Go there and raise your strength first. When they heard this, they were stunned and asked, so we're not going to the inner area? With our current strength, it's not suitable for us to go. It's too dangerous. Let's wait until you've entered the golden core stage. She glanced at them and continued, don't forget that I'll only be with you for a year. I estimate that it's about time for you to return after you've cultivated and advanced in the barrier. Hearing this, everyone fell silent. That's right. If he didn't mention it, they would have forgotten about the 1-year period she mentioned. It had already been a few months since their clan had set off. Time really flew by in the blink of an eye. Thinking about how they would have to split things with him once the 1-year period was up, he couldn't help but feel a little reluctant. It was undeniable that they had not been willing to follow Fingzhou in the beginning, but after their experiences together, they had begun to trust and rely on him from the bottom of their hearts. If they were to be separated one day, then... Chapter 1152. Seeing this, Fingzhou only smiled and didn't say much. After letting them rest for a while, he led them to the place where the barrier was originally set up. Returning to the place where they had lived for more than a month, the few of them sighed with emotion. However, for them to be able to come here, even though they were in the periphery, they had already seen a lot of things. This trip to the Hell Mountain Range could be considered worth it. What they needed to do next was to recuperate from their injuries and cultivate their minds to improve their strength. 10 days later. The injury on Ning Lang's calf gradually recovered. After the wound formed a scar, it fell off without leaving a single scar. After removing the cloth, he jumped on the open ground. After making sure that the injury on his calf was completely healed, he excitedly went to the cave residence. Fingzhou, the injury on my calf is all healed. There's no scar at all. Fingzhou, who was dressed in red, walked out of the cave residence. Seeing him jumping excitedly in front of the cave, he smiled and said, "Your injury is recovering much slower than Duanye's." The wound on his abdomen was also very deep. However, unlike yours, his flesh didn't turn out and he recovered in a few days. You've already recuperated for nearly 10 days. If you're still not healed, I'll really be smashing my own reputation. Does that mean I have to start cultivating as well? I saw that Duanyi and the others haven't come out ever since you set up the spirit gathering formation for them. They even directly used fasting pills to eat. Seeing that the 3 of them had started cultivating in the spirit gathering formation after recuperating, he also couldn't wait. He was afraid that he would fall too far behind them. After all, their strength was originally about the same. Even if he was the weakest among them, he didn't want to waste time in the foundation establishment stage when they had all entered the golden core stage. Your spirit gathering formation has been set up for you. However, let me tell you, when you're cultivating, you have to put your little bird into the spiritual beast space. Don't call it out during your cultivation. Since you're cultivating, you have to focus. Don't be distracted. Yes, I know. I will. He nodded in response and followed Fingzhou to the spirit gathering formation not far away. He sat down cross-legged and began cultivating. After he entered the spirit gathering formation, Fingzhou turned around and left to check on the other 3 people. Seeing that they were all cultivating in the spirit gathering formation with their eyes closed and absorbing spiritual energy, he turned around and returned to the cave residence. During this time, Old Eagle flew around and occasionally came back to take a look. And Tun Yun had been guarding Fingzhou's cave residence while the others were cultivating outside, Fingzhou had also entered the space to cultivate. What surprised her was that even after so long, the fruit of the bottle tree still hadn't ripened. It was still green. She didn't have many books about spirit fruits in the space, so she didn't know what kind of spirit fruit it was after all this time. However, during this period of time, she also gained something. Her strength in the gold core stage was gradually improving, which made her confident that she could enter the nascent soul stage when she left here. Besides herself, Duanyi and the others didn't know about this, and she didn't tell them either. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.